Yo, man, what's good, YouTube, man? Show boy, Mickal, now you feel me? Look, we got the video of the Crip who killed Tupac, Orlando, Baby Lane Anderson. If you're new, hit that like button, subscribe, and share, man. We're on the road to 630 subs. Let's get into the video.
Officially been booked for Tupac's murder, but that doesn't mean Keefe D has officially been booked for Tupac's murder, but that doesn't mean he actually pulled the trigger. He claimed for years that his nephew Orlando Anderson was the shooter, and today we're breaking down the wild and shocking true story behind how he ended up allegedly killing a rap legend over street beef. Orlando Baby Lane Anderson was born in Compton back in 1974. After his parents split up when he was a kid, Orlando's mom started working 12-hour shifts to feed the family, but she was working so much that she had to send Orlando to live with his grandmother. A lot of kids in Compton didn't have any support or places to go, but Orlando's family was always tight. He was surrounded by aunts, uncles, and cousins all the time, and back in the day, it was all good at his grandma's house. He graduated high school, and his half-brother even went to study at Berkeley, but Orlando still ended up getting sucked into the street life. It's tough to stay out of the trenches when you come up in the hood like Orlando, and what made it even harder was that his uncle Keefe D was one of the most powerful Crips on the West Coast. Keefe started repping the Southside Crips when he was around 12 years old, and by the time he got to high school, he was ready to level up and become a boss. He was selling little bags of weed back then, and even served as high school baseball coach, and that's how he got involved with moving coke. He got locked up a couple times as a teen.
This nigga served his baseball coach? Nah, bro, he served his baseball coach. He served his baseball coach. That is crazy. That's crazy.
Teenager, when he turned 20, Keefe really started making a name for himself in the streets. He got jumped one day by the ops while he was alone, and Keefe clapped back immediately. After they put hands on him, Keefe went home and picked up his rifle and pistol. Then he slid into op territory and started hunting down the dudes behind the beating. He found one of them outside his house, and Keefe dumped 2 clips into the crib while the dude ran inside ducking for cover. Then he found the dude's brother and chased him down with the pistol. The op put his hands up, and that's when Keefe decided to just smack him with the gun and let his homie stomp him out instead of killing him. He ended up doing 4 years on drug and assault charges, but prison just pushed him even deeper into the streets. 13 people were killed in the same prison he was locked up in, and when Keefe survived that, he was ready to come out and really take over the drug game. Crack was all over the place when Keefe was released, and that's how he really leveled up his business. One of his homies introduced him to a new plug, and it turned out to be a dude working.
I'm sorry, bro. When that happened in the 80s, that messed up the black community, bro. That really messed up the black community, because I feel like we're doing so good at in coming together now. Is just that really just split the community, community with the crack stuff and whatever, crack or cocaine, whatever it was that came into the world. And we know who brought it into the world, but I ain't gonna say none. We already know who brought it into the world, but I'm not gonna say who brought it to the streets, but we ain't gonna say nothing.
Directly for Pablo Escobar. Back then, Keefe was moving 5 to 10 kilos at a time, but the first time he met the Colombian plug, they handed him 140 kilos to flip. It was too much weight to sell in Compton and the rest of LA, so Keefe started running the drugs all over the country. Around the same time Keefe was becoming a drug lord, Orlando was hopping off the porch and started repping the Southside Crips too. A retired Compton PD and gang detective named Bobby Ladd said he used to see Orlando hanging out on the block with the other Crips all the time. In school, Orlando was a good student who always had great grades, but in the streets, he was already getting a rep for being a savage. Orlando was never convicted of anything serious, but Bobby Ladd said he was connected to 2 different homicides before the Tupac situation went down. At the same time Orlando was getting deeper in the streets and Keefe was taking over the coke game, Suge Knight and Death Row Records were dominating hip-hop. Death Row was already on the way up after Dre and Snoop Dogg started selling millions of records, but then Suge linked up with Tupac and took everything to another level. Death Row wasn't just a label though. Suge came up in Compton repping the Mob Power Bloods, and a ton of dudes affiliated with Death Row rep the same set. The label was basically its own gang back then, and they were known for putting crazy pressure on anyone who got in the way. The Mob Power Rules already had tension with the Southside Crips, but after Death Row blew up, the situation got way more heated. Keefe D and his homies were all tight with Diddy, Biggie, and the rest of the Bad Boy Records crew, and after Suge called Diddy out and sparked a war between the East and West Coast, the beef didn't just stay in the industry. On the outside, it looked like Tupac and Biggie were the ones beefing, but behind the music was a deadly street war that led to a lot of death on both sides.
I feel like Biggie and Tupac wasn't really beefing. It was Diddy and Suge Knight, to be honest. If I'm being, I feel like Tupac and Biggie, they're still alive right now. The beef would have been squashed already, but
Industry
I mean,
drama
it is
put
what it
everything in
is,
the
bro.
spotlight.
It is what it
Crips
is,
and
bro.
Bloods were at each other's
It's just
necks
crazy.
even more. And that's how Orlando ended up getting involved with the situation. According to
Like
Keefe D,
Tupac a little
one
bit.
of his little homies was
Orlando
shopping at
Anderson
the
with
Lakewood
him is
Mall
like
when a
Tupac a
dude
little
from
bit.
Death Row named Trey rolled up with his crew and pressed him. They thought Keefe's homie was there by himself, but then Orlando and some other Southside Crips came in and put hands on the Death Row guys. They ended up snatching Trey's Death Row chain, but nobody had any idea what was going to happen next. A few weeks after Trey got his chain snatched, he went to Las Vegas with Pac, Suge, and the rest of Death Row to watch the Mike Tyson fight. According to some reports, Orlando was a huge boxing fan. He wanted to see the fight and didn't have a ticket, so he allegedly snuck in and sparked a situation that ended with Tupac dying. Orlando wasn't the only Southside dude in the city though. Keefe and a bunch of other dudes in their crew were in Vegas at the same time. And Keefe said he saw Suge the day before the Tyson fight, and they shook hands outside his hotel. Keefe and Suge knew each other from way back in the day and were cool even though they rep rival sets. Everything probably would have been fine if Orlando wasn't at the Lakewood Mall when Trey got jumped, but unfortunately, that's not how everything went down. According to people around him, Orlando wasn't just a gangbanger who wanted to stay in the trenches forever. He was a huge fan of music and wanted to get into the industry. Orlando even started up a label called Success Records, but he never got the chance to really go legit with it. He was also a huge Tupac fan and owned everything Pac ever released, and that's what makes what happened next even more tragic.
He was a Tupac
Orlando
fan?
was walking through the MGM Grand Lobby after the Tyson fight, and that's when he ran into Tupac, Suge, Trey, and the other Death Row guys. According to reports, Trey recognized Orlando from what went down at the Lakewood Mall a few weeks before, and he's the one who pointed him out to Pac. Orlando was a big fan of Pac and didn't have any issues with him, so he had no idea what was about to happen. Pac walked up and asked him if he was from the South Side, and when Orlando said he was, Tupac swung on him, and then the rest of the Death Row crew jumped in and stomped him out. Mob James.
Yeah, see, like, I feel like if Tupac wasn't there, Tupac would probably still be alive right now. Maybe, but because you never know. Because remember at that time, bro, it was like, I don't know, bro. It's crazy. I'm gonna just be quiet. Though. People are gonna come
in
to
the
start
interview,
talking
he
shit.
said that everyone knew Orlando was a real hitter. Most people would be terrified getting jumped by Suge and all the Death Row dudes. But Orlando allegedly yelled, "Fuck you and your money," while it was going down. Orlando wasn't gonna let them put a beating on him and just get away with it. So after the Death Row guys ran out, he dusted himself off and met up with Keefe and the rest of the Southside crew. According to Keefe, Diddy's homie Zip was there too, and he's the one who gave him the gun that killed Tupac that night. Keefe and Diddy have been affiliated for years, and Keefe even let Diddy use his whip when they were shooting Usher's first music video. According to rumors, Diddy already had a mill on Suge and Pac's heads after they dropped the track Hit 'Em Up, and Pac rapped, "First off, fuck your bitch and the clique you claim. West side when we ride, come equipped
Come on
with
now,
game.
bro. That's the best.
To be a player, but I
Diss track
fucked
ever,
your
bro.
wife. We bust on bad boys, niggas fuck for life. Then fuck Biggie, fuck Bad Boy as a staff, record label, and as a motherfucking crew. And if you want to be down with Bad Boy, then fuck you too. And you niggas can't feel it, we the realest. Fuck them, we Bad Boy killers." When Keefe and everyone else found out about what went down at the MGM Grand, they knew they had to clap back, but nobody brought guns with them to Vegas. So Zip allegedly told him about some poles he had stashed in his whip and gave him a 40 cal Glock to do the hit. The Southside crew took a van and a car full of dudes and went straight to the nightclub Suge owned called Club 662. The plan was to wait there and ambush Pac and Suge when they rolled up. But after sitting around for half an hour, some of the Crips got cold feet and Keefe told him to just leave. That's when he hopped in the whip with Orlando and two other Southside dudes named Bubble Up and Big Dre. They hit the strip looking for Pac and Suge, and the only reason they found them was because some girls spotted Tupac first and started screaming at him from their car. Pac started hanging out the window and waving to him, and that's when Keefe spotted him and told Bubble Up to bust.
Hey, Tupac never probably got out their car or anything like that. Did that? I mean, we never know. You really never know though.
But this is where the story gets complicated.
But how come Suge just kept on driving? Why he just stayed there?
Pac and Suge, and he didn't have a good shot because he was sitting in the front passenger seat. Big Dre was the one who had a better angle to let off shots. But when Keefe tried to pass him the Glock, Dre didn't want to take it. Keefe says that's when Orlando grabbed the strap, leaned over Dre, and shot Pac to death. Some of the Death Row guys were in the whip right behind Pac and Suge. And after the shots started going on.
I mean, if you're shooting, just keep on driving. Why the fuck are you just standing there? I don't know, bro. We don't really know the real story. We're just saying what came out in public, so we don't really know what really happened.
The Crips got away.
That could be a whole different situation.
But the drama didn't end there.
According
to reports, everyone in the city knew who was behind Pac's shooting immediately. Reggie Wright Jr. was the head of Death Row security back then, but his dad was still a cop with the Compton PD. And Keefe said he rolled up on him and gave him death threats if anything happened to his son after Pac got hit up. Bobby Ladd says that Orlando was bragging about shooting Pac after it went down, but after Pac died from his wounds 7 days later, Orlando knew it was better to keep his mouth shut about it. Pac getting killed took the violence in Compton to a whole new level.
It
In
did.
the first 10 days after it happened, there were at least 11 shootings and 3 more murders in the street. A month after Pac died, Orlando and 21 other Crips got booked by the LAPD. A lot of people already thought he was the #1 suspect behind Pac's murder, but he was never officially charged for it, and even when on
Honest, I think it was either him or Keefe D, to be honest. But how do we really know it's him though? Plus, remember, he passed away like I think
TV
like
tonight,
2 years later or 3
cops were
years
still
later.
working on the case a couple years later, and Orlando was still being
From gang
investigated
violence
over
or
Pac's
street
death.
violence, whatever
But
it was.
before they could charge him with anything, he got caught up in a different street situation and ended up getting shot to death.
See?
Suge Knight was facing a
told
serious
y'all.
sentence over the MGM
See?
situation because he was already on probation when he jumped in and helped stomp
Is it?
Orlando out. According to rumors, he paid Orlando $60K to testify that Suge didn't have anything to do with it. But the cops already had footage of what went down, and Orlando's testimony didn't help. He still allegedly got the money though,
No,
and
I'm
put it
not
into
sure.
the record label he started with his brother. Orlando was still trying to break into the music industry, but at the same time, he had both feet in the trenches of Compton, and this is how he got killed. Orlando had lived with his grandma from a young age and was really tight with her. So after she died back in '98,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like Orlando Baby Lane, and I feel like he was a smart person. It's just he just caught up in the streets, so he can't really like do anything. You feel me? Because when you call in the streets, that's what you know. That's what you're good at. That's what you pretty much know. That's what you know because you grew up in it.
he stayed up all night drinking with one of his
Man.
homies. Later in the day,
It is what it is,
man.
man. R.P.
That's when
Tupac,
Orlando
R.P.
spotted
Baby
some
Lane
dudes
too.
from a set
We don't
called
know if he really
Corner
killed
Pocket,
Tupac.
who either owed him or Keefe D
Whatever
money
we
over
know.
some coke. Orlando and his homie pulled up, and Orlando started pressing him over the money. That's when a couple other Corner Pocket affiliates came around and asked what was up. And Orlando upped his strap and started letting off shots. He hit one of his ops, but they shot back and dropped Orlando with a chest shot. That's when Orlando's homie picked up his gun and shot another Corner Pocket affiliate. And when it was all over, Orlando and 2 Corner Pockets were dead. At the
Damn.
same time Orlando was killed, Keefe D was facing life in prison on drug charges. A bunch of his homies flipped on him, he lost his cartel plug because of all the heat over the Tupac situation, and everything came crashing down at the same time. The feds had over 100 agents working the case against Keefe and the rest of the Southside Crips.
100
The situation wasn't
agents.
looking good for him.
Damn, so they
Keefe
really
said
want to
the
take him
feds
down
offered
for
him
him.
$500,000 to be an informant and help them arrest other big-time dealers. But instead, he decided to tell
$500,000?
them everything about Tupac's death so he could get the drug charges dropped. Keefe named Orlando as the shooter, and most people thought the case was closed. But
Oh, so he snitched on his nephew?
now it's getting even more
Oh, what is
complicated.
it? What?
Keefe's deal to not be charged with Pac's murder was all about him telling the cops everything. Over the years, some people have
I
said
don't think
Keefe's
he's told
story is
though.
capped though, and now he's officially been booked for the crime. According to Diddy's ex-bodyguard, Gene Deal, a lot of Keefe's original
Remember, the reason what they got Keefe D is from all the interviews he did talking about the Tupac thing. From all the interviews that he did from the past years and all that, that's what got him locked up right there.
story
Got
doesn't
him
make
caught
any
up in it.
sense. Keefe
Talking
claims that
about it.
Zip is the one who gave him the gun that killed Pac, but Gene said Zip never had a gun on him. He told the Art of Dialogue a story about how Zip got shot by a 17-year-old outside his own club, and Zip didn't even have a strap to defend himself. So it doesn't make sense that he would have one stashed in his whip the night Tupac was killed. After Keefe got arrested, someone affiliated with the
Right
Crips
here,
came
yeah.
out and said that Big Dre was actually the one who pulled the trigger. They claimed that Orlando couldn't have a clear shot because Dre was 6'6" and around 400 pounds at the time. So
Oh,
Orlando wouldn't have
damn,
been able to lean
damn.
over and get a shot like they say he did. Even after the dude came forward though, Greg Kading said he's confident that Orlando was a shooter.
I'm extremely confident that it was Orlando.
Right now, nobody knows exactly how everything went down that night in Vegas. But after Keefe's trial starts, there's no telling what kind of news will break in the case. Big Dre died from obesity, and Bubble Up was shot to death in Compton back in 2015, which leaves Keefe as the last man standing.
This nigga was still in Compton, bro. My gosh.
Orlando wanted to leave the streets behind and go legit in the music game. But unfortunately, he got wrapped up in one of the wildest murders in the history of rap. A lot of people in the industry didn't want to work with the dude who was involved with Pac's death, so he stayed in the trenches.
It is true though, but look, man, look. That was a video that Crip who killed Tupac. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments below if y'all think he did it or not. We don't really know. Who really knows? You know, saying people lie, people talk, you feel me? But it is what it is, man. I'll see y'all later, man. Moo.